Right.
So
Yes.
I basically decided to recast the way we explain some of the material for system security essentials. And I made reference previously to something called the Magnificent Seven. And then the more I thought about it, it's like, well, I'm not so sure that's the best analogy to use to explain it. I ended up revising. I sent email to everyone saying the study guide and addendum were revised to enhance utility and readability. And basically, if you have old versions, if you have an old version of the addendum or an old version of the study guide, you should discard those. And I'm pretty sure that that's going to help as far as referencing the basic material. The reason I'm bringing it up in class, you'll notice here it says fewer than 25% of recipients have opened this email. So now one of the things that is happening with Office 365 and the latest version of Exchange Server is that it gives me insights like this about whether or not, students are catching it. But it could be that they're seeing it in their Gmail as opposed to the UBI email side of it. So I just didn't want to take any chances. The other thing I explained was that I was pushing back on the deadline for the solution, and it's now due this Wednesday. And traditionally in this class, the first module, you secured your own personal technology, and then we moved into like a corporate environment, and we were going to try to dabble early with that. That will be ready by the time we get into module 2. So what we've done is made a substitution for the module 1 solution, and that's here. So here you see the deadline has been pushed back to 3 p.m. Wednesday this week. And ideally, what we'd like to do is finish the rest of our content and potentially either review the first items on your first attempt of the Module 3 assessment. We certainly want to be finished with your first attempt in the reconciliation by the end of the month. So here is what we posted in securing your own, right? And there's a part 1 and a part 2. So there's actually YouTubes with this and a PDF. And the PDF is pretty explicit. And what you'll find is that as you work through this, if you have a Mac, there might be minor differences. If you, from season to season, there might be minor changes in the features and functions, the way they appear on the screen. But essentially, you need to work through 6 criteria. And this last one is huge. So you want to configure and use a local user account with standard privileges to access websites, online applications, and email. Most attacks are designed to utilize or borrow the privileges of the active account that is logged in while the device or system is online. So if you're using that first account when a system is first set up, the first account is always established or implemented, provisioned with root or administrative privileges. And people just get a new setup on a new screen, and away they go on the internet. And we have talked about this quite a bit, right? One thing I want to call out is that if you should try to complete each of these steps to secure your own technology in the order listed. In particular, if you identify any freeware or unknown applications, those are things you want to do before you get to item 4, where you're resetting the firewall rules to default settings. And then afterwards, you want to check the listing again. So what am I saying? I just wanted to take a moment to explain this a little further. I'll go into control panel. So I'm going to start typing the word control. And if I look at my programs and features, and let's say that there's something in here that I don't need. Now I have a pretty boring laptop, right? I mean, can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah, it's not, you don't see any sexy games in there, right? Nothing to write home about. So yeah, I could have like a dual boot or a multi-boot, and in the best world, that's what you'd want to do. And that's a topic for another time. Or I could set up my business stuff in a virtual machine and keep the, you know, the main install on the primary partition to be like a home edition where gaming is possible. But let's pretend that there's a whole bunch of stuff in there that was shipped with the laptop, and it had to do with ASUS, like ASUS device check and ASUS hot plug controller. So I'm using an ASUS TUF laptop as opposed to a Republic of Gamer, which is a pretty popular brand. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's pretty cool. Okay. Well, so the odds are pretty good if I have all sorts of extras installed on my machine when I go to the firewall. And in particular, everybody see the restore default setting? So
Yes.
when the factory loads all sorts of extras into the applications, sort of a value added thing, it modifies your firewall. And so if you go into advanced and you look at your inbound rules in particular, we just saw NVIDIA in there, right? Everybody got me? So this is a great example of something that is just totally wrong about the way the industry works. So I have in control panel, in my program features, I have NVIDIA, and everybody sees that. But does anyone see like the other stuff that's in there? For example, Spotify. Does anyone see that?
Yes.
Okay. But do you see it in my listing here?
No.
Okay. Let's see if it's in the apps. I want to look in the apps. So I'll go to settings and I'll go to apps and I'll look at my installed apps and I want to see if Spotify is listed. Oh, I have Spotify listed. And look at all the other stuff that's in here, right? I mean, if I'm really serious, do I want solitaire or casual games? No, not really. Do I ever use weather? No, I don't ever use weather. Can I uninstall it? Oh, I can uninstall weather. But would you care to guess that if I look close enough, I can find something in there for all sorts of things I don't use? Oh, here's the ASUS Link Remote Agent. Now, do you think that if I wiped my ASUS laptop clean to get rid of all the junk that was loaded on it, and I only loaded a couple of ASUS drivers, do you think I'd want a remote agent link active all the time? No. So here's the thing. One of the best ways to get rid of all this crap, first of all, is to restore defaults. And then, well, actually, let's take it a step back further yet. What you want to do is get rid of all the extra junk in here you know you don't need. Does anyone see iTunes in this list? Apple iTunes? No. Nope.
Nope.
Now, let me go into my settings. Do we see iTunes in here in this list? Oh, yeah. Well, it just so turns out I have a huge investment in iTunes. So where I don't use Microsoft Windows 11 Weather, which is always connected live all the time, and I don't need ASUS Live Assist, Remote Assist, I do want this. So what you want to do is walk through this screen and delete anything you don't want or need. Look at this. Hello, Disney. Do I want Disney rules on my firewall to open ports if I don't ever use Disney Plus on my laptop?
No,
And does everybody see the date here? 12/28/2022. That's a pretty good example. See how the media audio control panel is 12/28/2022? That's a, if you look at the dates and when they were installed, the earliest common dates that you find everywhere, that's a pretty good, oh, here we go again. 12/28/2022. And then if I look in what, my C drive, oh, here's another one. Recovery directory, what date? 28 December 2022. The OneDrive temp folder, before I whacked that, the user folder, the first time it was used. Can you tell when this machine was set up the first time after I wiped it down to the bare metal and blasted everything the factory shipped on it? It's 12/28/2022. It's the common oldest date. Now, this perf logs thing was from the install media, but essentially, this is when I installed the operating system over Christmas break. So Santa Claus was good to me. I looked at all the junk on this system and said, holy buckets. Is ASUS crazy? I mean, it's a gaming laptop. So what do they load on there? Lots of gaming stuff, right? They didn't know it was going to be like a hacking instructor that was going to use it for hacking courses. So I ended up reloading a bunch of things, and then I've created some other stuff in the meantime for demonstration purposes. But the point I'm trying to make is you want to do a little bit of spelunking on the common dates on your drive, and then you want to check to see, all right, in control panel, do I have any traditional applications I do not use? Then in settings apps, you know, the apps to work off the start menu, those are a different animal and they run in a different manner because they're designed to take advantage of the cool Metro interface in the latest versions of Windows 10 and 11. I find the stuff there I know I don't want and I keep. So do I need, after I delete all of that, I go to the Windows firewall screen, and the first thing I do is restore defaults. So I remove the apps and the software and control panel and settings. I absolutely know I'm just not going to use them. Then I hit restore defaults. And this is going to muck with a lot because what's going to happen is I have iTunes, I have Spotify. But if I do that, the important point is I wanted to demonstrate this live in class. And I wanted to show you that this is still worth doing. If you start an application like iTunes or Spotify and there isn't a firewall rule and it needs one, what happens? It pops up and says, hey, there is no firewall rule for this app and it needs an app. And if it's something you want to keep, so I'm going to hit this, I'm going to hit restore defaults. It's going to say yes to continue. The one that was in there for Zoom might go wonky right now, and we actually cut off our Zoom session. But did everything come to a screeching halt right now? No, I didn't even skip a beat, did I? Everybody else is with us, right? Can someone unmute?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, great. So everybody's still with us. So that's going to help take out the things that were preloaded in Windows I didn't use, like weather. And then if I go into here, I can remove things that I know I don't want after, well, actually, this is the old screen, so I should probably pull a fresh screen. Let's go to advanced settings again and go to inbound rules. Oh, look, after I refreshed and closed the screen and reopened, where's ASUS? Anybody see ASUS?
No.
That's what I'm talking about. That's the result we want. Now, if I scroll down and I see something else I need to set up again, or if I open something that requires, I'm looking for stuff that I otherwise wouldn't need. Now, this one is kind of curious. All join router. I could disable that to see what that's about. It's a system default for some reason. I don't have a wireless router at my house called all join. Does anyone else have an all join branded router?
Nope, not me.
Never heard of it. So one thing you can do if you're really nervous about mucking with your network security is you can basically highlight something and disable the rule for a time. And then see if it causes a problem, right? I mean, if you're worried that it's something specific. And look at all this stuff. Device streaming, right? So some of that might have to do with the real cool features I have for screen sharing between my laptop and my smart TV. I can always disable these rules, and if something happens, I can select them back and enable them again. So if I open up iTunes, iTunes is going to bark. If I want to do echo request, if I want to ping something, if I can't ping, it could be because these rules are what? By default, they're disabled, right? Do I need anything that's IPv6 if I've disabled IPv6 as a protocol in general? I don't have it enabled. If I go into here, no, I'm sorry. Let's go into control panel again. I go into control panel and I go into networking and sharing, and then look at the adapter setting, and I double click on this, go into properties. If oh, look, it's enabled. See, I don't use IPv6 because IPv6 is not active on any internet service provider system in the Virgin Islands. And there are extra exposures that come with IPv6 if you're not using it. It has to do with the way that newer apps use IPv6 to connect through old IPv4, and they overlay or tunnel. I don't want to get into that right now, but if you're not using it, turn it off. So I turn that off. I'm going to say okay and close. What can I do with every single IPv6 rule I see here with impunity? I can delete them because I'm not using anything that's IPv6. There's some more IPv6, right? Why would I have firewall rules to let IPv6 traffic in? Why would I run the protocol IPv6 if I don't even use it and my internet service provider doesn't use it? And UVI, Bucks Wi-Fi doesn't use it, right? What the heck? There's no reason for me to have IPv6 active or to leave any of that going. But if I want to do some network troubleshooting and I use echo request frequently, I can turn this on and now I can ping. So before, when I was demonstrating how to ping well, there's something here. Here's echo request diagnostics. I can enable these. It was demonstrating in CSC 243, how to ping something. And it can be blocked. It doesn't work sometimes. That has to do with the firewall. Reset defaults, then go through, remove or disable anything else that you suspect could be unnecessary. Remove it if you're sure, disable it if you're not. And then that's what I want you to do for this item in your solution. Any question about resetting the firewall rules to default settings and then check the listing again? If it's still present, select it and delete it or disable it, right? Capture a final screenshot showing it's no longer there. I just showed you ASUS. It was there. All I did was add a driver, but why do I want active remote assistance running all the time, listening and waiting? That's crap. But I captured that. That's part of my first step in task number 4. Then I did the default rules reset. Then it was gone. So when I take another screenshot, it shows that ASUS is no longer there and AllJoin is disabled. I got to see something like that for item 4 with each of you, where you make a conscious decision to disable or remove. Something was there. I don't know what this is. Why is it here? And then afterwards it's gone. Okay? Any questions? So the local user account with standard privileges to access websites, online applications, and email, right? Did I or did I not already establish a separate account called Mortimer Snenglefart? Anybody remember this?
Yes.
Yeah.
And does anyone remember what we can conclude if we go into users and we don't see a directory? One of 2 possibilities is true. What's the first possibility and most alarming possibility? Let's pretend that I didn't set up Mortimer Snenglefart. I don't even know the guy. And what a weird name, right? So I have a user account on my system, but I don't have a directory that shows anything about what Mortimer did on my system. Means one of 2 things. What are some questions you would ask if you saw something like this? What's one question that would come to mind? Say again?
If I didn't see his account?
If you did see his account, but we're on this screen in users and you don't see a user profile, a corresponding user profile. It could be that he deleted it. Thank you, Raheem. So Raheem said, could be he deleted the user directory because he's trying to cover his tracks. He was on my system, he logged in, and he wants to try to get rid of those things. If he got rid of this directory, he may not have had enough knowledge to understand you got to go into the profiles list in registry. You remember profiles list? Registry, didn't we go into that last week? We found out we were fishing in the wrong pond. And all we did was start at the top in the wrong place and we could never find profile list. Yeah, that happens a lot. People try to get in the registry and they're in the wrong place and they start making changes. And before they realize it, I made the change in the wrong place. And then they ruin Windows. You can actually brick Windows by making changes in the wrong place in the registry. So the fact that I took extra care to double check and walk through on a different heading at the top from that registry, that was something I'm glad you had a chance to see that. In any case, it means that he could have deleted it. It could also mean that he's never logged in before. So Mortimer Snenglefart may have never logged in on this machine. Would you want to keep an extra account on your machine if no one ever uses it? As a general security principle, what do you think?
No.
You generally wouldn't if nobody's really using it. I mean, if you need a backdoor account, that's different. That's kind of different. And we'll talk about that a little later on. So the thing that's interesting to me is that I have a third-party account called T. Christian Kentop, and when it created my user profile, it kind of abbreviated. But already I have a huge amount of data in there. Look at this. I have 1/4 of a terabyte of information in my login, right? Now, here's the thing. If I go ahead and log out and I log in Mortimer Snengelfart to demonstrate what happens when a profile is built, it's going to cut off our Zoom session. So I can't really do that. But once we get our virtual platform going, I can do it live. And that's a cool part about having other machines in the mix. So in any case, when the first time M. Snengelfart signs in, you'll see a new directory called M. Snengelfart. So we can prove that, you know, and if I open this up and I look at the dates, I can get an idea of when the first time the login occurred, right? Everybody see this? So when did T. Christian Kentop sign in the very first time? 28th of December, right? And that kind of matches the other directory dates. So that's a useful thing. If you find M. Snengelfart and the common dates inside that user profile show, oh, he logged in on the 15th of January, then you know he might have logged in for the very first time on your system on the 15th of January. If you find dates in here from like a current date, here you could go looking in the logs or events to see, okay, what was this user doing on the 9th of January? So there's all sorts of ways to cross-reference things for security purposes. And that's just a useful thing to understand and know. Are there any other questions about our solution and what's expected by the start of class on Wednesday? Okay. Now, without further ado, let's get into I thought I had it open. Here and the addendum. Hello. There we are. Yep. So we were almost through the study guide proper, I think on page 5. And all right, so one thing I did when I restructured this, I took out the stuff about the Magnificent Seven. So we have 7 essential security principles. These are things you want to do, for a secure system. And then part 2, down here, these are 7 notorious security challenges. So that's how we've restructured this. The first 7 concepts, these are things that you generally want to watch for and ensure your system, you follow that guidance for your system. In part 2, we talk about things that cripple security. So these are the things you do for better security in the first part 1, and then these are the things that you avoid or you mitigate for better security in part 2. And so we did talk about freeware. We have shown you about all users, read, execute, and inheritance. And oh yeah, by the way, I did change some of the color coding. So wherever you see a directive like, hey, be sure to train everyone to uninstall each free application, right? That's where you can walk into your next place of work and say, hey, a subject matter expert at the University of the Virgin Islands who has the highest cybersecurity certification possible says, you shouldn't have applications you don't use. So let's take them off, right? Blame me if you don't want to blame anybody else. We did talk about work group and work group, didn't we? Yes, no? Hmm? At least one student doesn't remember that. Okay, so let's go to system properties. And then let's go to about at the bottom, I think. Advanced system settings. So forgive me, in Windows 11, the GUI is a little different, so I kind of, everybody see this here? We go to computer name. And I thought I mentioned everyone, when you go to system properties and you go to computer name tab, I changed my computer name to something other than the gibberish that's automatically assigned. I used some numbers in there so that I'd confuse hackers, and I changed the work group from the default work group name is literally work group. And if you're in the work group and you're not networked, you can actually browse the contents of other machines on your network that have the same default work group. So what do we mean by browse? If you go into File Explorer, you'll notice down here it says network. And the simple truth is the default network discovery is usually turned on. So if you turn it on and then you click on here, you'll be able to see other machines and the system contents in some cases if they're on the same work group. And since everybody's default work group is work group, unless it's changed into something other than work group, any Yahoo like me that walks up and clicks network is going to be able to see anything else that's connected in there because the defaults were never changed. That default is terrible. Now, I'm not going to turn on network discovery. I just thought I would explain that piece. Any questions about what we mean by the default work group being work group? So when you share something on a network, the default is that everyone sees it. What do we mean by that? I have a spare folder here. Can everybody see my spare folder? My spare directory?
Yes.
And if I go to properties and I want to share it, because I just want to put some cool stuff in there, and I want to click on share. Oh, no, I'm not going to use the wizard. I'll go to advanced sharing. Properties, sharing, advanced sharing. If I click share this name, it's going to be my computer name, Zorg, and the directory name spare. So someone else can connect to that. I'm going to do this. I'm going to apply this and then say, okay. Now I just shared that folder. And the default setting for sharing means everyone can see it. So it's not a hidden share. When someone's browsing a network, if they're on the same work group or the same domain, when they get to Zorg, they can click on it and then they'll see spare sitting there just like that. Now, how would this look? I'm going to pretend that I'm somebody else right here. So pretend for a moment that I'm sitting on a different machine called Doofus, right? And so I'm on a machine called Doofus and I'm connected and I want to get into trouble because I'm a doofus. And so I'm going to select the machine name. And then up here, hold up here. Wait a second. In File Explorer, when I select my computer name, I should see options change up here. This is kind of weird. Ah, there it is. You have to click the ellipse. So in Windows 11, it's in a slightly different place. In Windows 10, it just pops into view. I want to map a network drive. And let's say that I want to connect to Zorg. So I'm going to use, if I'm sitting on Doofus and everybody's pretending that this reads or it reads my PC or this PC, I'm going to connect Z for Zorg and I'm going to say Zorg. Oh, I got to use the O, right? And what was my folder called? Spare. And let's leave the checkbox there. Oh, hey, look. Now I have a drive letter Z. And if I click on that, I can see and read anything that's in there. So if I were sitting on another machine, if you're connected to Buck's Wi-Fi on the campus right now, you can do this right now and connect to my folder, just like that. It's not a good idea because it makes everything open. What you should do instead, when you're sharing a folder like spare, is I should go in here to properties. And when I click share, I should add, I'll add the name share with a $sign. That $sign will hide it. So what am I saying? When somebody thinks, oh, I have a spare directory on my machine that I've shared, and they go to my computer name and the directory name, they won't be able to connect to it. It doesn't show up. If they browse on the network, the $sign hides it. So they'll see Zorg, they'll see my machine name, but when they double click on it, they won't see the share folder, the spare folder, right? And actually the name is spare, I think. So I think the better thing to do is to remove this. I'm gonna unselect this, hit apply. Yes, I'm gonna disconnect. See, it's still seeing the connection. Let's go back in there and share again. If I share and I click share this folder, now it'll use the name spare. Only this time I'll add a $sign. That allows my spare directory to be shared on the network, but only if other people know what it's called. It's not sitting around in network browser. When network discovery is turned on, people can't just browse to it. Any questions about that default? So we talk about names, and when you browse the network neighborhood, you'd be shocked at the number of goofy names like Betty's iPhone. You can be in a class or on campus or at a hotel or in a restaurant, and you can search for different, you can just browse the network. And what you might find says network discovery is turned off. I'm going to turn it on to see if I can see anything else. And actually, I think if I change it, it's going to ask me to reboot, and then won't be able to go. I'm going to click this to change it, and I'm going to turn on network discovery and file sharing. Yep. So now I've turned on network file sharing. Where do you see this in control panel? You go to control panel and you go into the home and you go into network and sharing. There's an option called advanced sharing settings. Everybody see this here? If you click on here, you can turn network discovery and file and print sharing on and on. And that means now I'll close all my screens. If I have any File Explorer screens open, I've closed them all. I'll open it up again. And now if I click network, then usually what happens is that it starts looking on the network to see if there's anything out there. And the first thing that will happen is that the name of the device will appear on the screen. Then you can click on it and see more. You're not seeing anything right now because I'm on a different work group. And that's why you don't see anything. But if I were in the work group, I would start seeing all sorts of student devices Is there anyone that would care to share what happens on their screen? Can I get a volunteer to just click network and see what happens? Because it's pretty spectacular. No volunteers? I think if there's a feature for that on a Mac. So the question was just asked, can you browse the network on a Mac? You might be able to go to some stuff in the network option in settings. Or you can download an app to scan the network and just browse the network. I'm pretty sure if you go into settings and then try to connect to other devices and other systems, it'll browse your network. You can see printers. Okay, so Raheem can see printers on the network. Is there anyone who would like to share their screen and then I can walk you through it? I mean, this is in your home, right? Is there anybody who's sitting in their home at their, or how about in the dorm?
I'm at home.
You're at home?
Yeah.
Would you be willing to share your screen and we can walk through this, please?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. And Sander, aren't you in the dormitory?
No, I'm not. I'm at home too.
Well, you're at home too. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, go ahead and open up File Explorer then.
For me?
Yes, the Manila folder to the left of that.
Oh,
That-
yeah.
Yeah, that one. Open that up. And then where it says click to change. Can you click to change? And turn it on. And say yes. Then you'd want to, all right. So right away, oh, look, right away. Now, your R7000, that's the Wi-Fi gateway, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So why is that bad? Well, now I know he's got an R7000, so I can search for Wi-Fi router R7000 and I'll find out, oh, here's the brand, right? But you probably have, so you're on a computer.
Mm,
Yeah, so there's a Mac in the, you might have a Mac Mini or maybe an Apple TV in one of the bedrooms,
yeah.
right? Well, this PC are you seeing your own PC for the, where it says computer? It says desktop AOLD D36.
No, that's something different.
That's something different. But let's look at where it says this PC. Could you right click and go to properties? And I only want to see in there, if you right click where it says this PC and go to properties. Yeah. Go to properties, there we go. And then go to advanced system settings. Then go to computer name. See how the default workgroup name is workgroup?
Mm-hmm.
Now, the reason that you can see those other machines, like the Mac in the bedroom. Okay, so, all right, yeah, you can cancel that. So if you go back to network and click on network, the reason you can see the Mac, the machine that's in the master bedroom, and the reason you can see desktop AOLD D36 is because each of those are members of a work group called work group. That's the very reason they're on the screen. And part of our goal in system security is to reduce the exposures so that you don't have this massive footprint out there when you're connected, and people can start to pick up all sorts of interesting information. I
Okay.
would love it if we could all give Akeem a small token of our appreciation. Can everybody join me in unmute your microphone and let's give him a short golf clap for yay. Thank you for your willingness to share some network exposures at your home. Now, presumably at most home network locations, you don't have no neighbors that are too close. You don't have folks that park their cars outside your house with Wi-Fi devices where they could connect to your Wi-Fi signal and jump on your stuff and so on, right?
No.
Usually people feel pretty safe on their home network, which is why the senior vice president of HBO took his work laptop to his house. And the hackers that stole season 6
Of Game of Thrones.
they stole Game of Thrones. They couldn't get on his laptop by trying to break into his office machine while he was connected at HBO headquarters. But when he went home, he was on his home network and there were exposures on his home network. And oh, yeah, now we got another machine. Look, Max Echo Show, right? So now we have another device that's connected. And, you know, that could be a smart device. It could be a set-top box, like I mean, who knows? But you could start to figure out what's going on and then start doing use some other tools to find out more information about these connected devices. So thanks again for sharing that. You can stop sharing your screen and you probably want to go back to that part of control panel and turn off what?
Turn off network sharing.
Yeah, you want to go into here. Let's do this together. You're going to go into here. No, I'm sorry. Control panel home, and then network and sharing center, and then advanced settings. And you're going to do this. And that helps. So those are things that help. Network discovery, being disabled, and then not being a part of what? The work group named work group. It's terrible, but they all set up like that. If you
Where
don't
did you go
have,
from control panel?
say again?
Where did you go from control panel oh, network and sharing?
Yes, it was a network and share, it was network sharing. It was the network and sharing center. And then I went to the advanced sharing settings. And then I turned this off and this off.
Yeah, thank you.
Now, I want you to notice that's just on the network we're connected now. This is another part of network security that is a huge challenge. Did you know that I have other private networks, like when I'm connected at home? And then I have like the network at the airport, right? So yeah, for some reason I can configure password protected sharing if I want to do that in public folders. That's turned on by default. I don't think I want to do that by default. Those are useful things to change. And that's essentially what you want your users to do, is to have a list of dirty dozen things they can resolve or fix on their own very quickly. I want to show you something here in class notes, and I found this. There it is. Can everybody see this? How to secure your PC after a fresh Windows install. Now, this is
Yeah.
a pretty crappy print of the live article, but if you Google that title, 13 steps to secure PC after fresh Windows install, you'll probably get the original article. These are good things to do. And the trick is to keep it simple. If you have security measures that your users can't follow, like a simple article, here, take 13 steps and you're better, right? It's not going to work. So you want people to do things, but you want to, in order for them to be consistent in their practice of it, you basically want to make sure that your approach with the user and with the measure is easy to follow. And one of the things that is our biggest security challenge is that technical people and cybersecurity people tend to think of users as dumb sheep. Now, that, believe it or not, is an industry-wide problem. If we don't have a positive regard for the users that we are serving, and they don't want to have to learn all the tech stuff, we should be able to take some time to keep it simple so that anyone can follow it. And that is one of the reasons why a lot of system security fails, is because we have experts who are so good at feeling good about their expertise about how to secure systems, they can't get anybody to play team ball. So you see this, I talked about HBO, that's where this reference comes from. One thing they should have done in their training at HBO, in their education awareness and training program, they should have said, hey, there's some things you want to change at your house so that your home network is better. So you're not a sitting duck when you bring the company laptop home, right? And they never took the time to do that. It cost them $75 million in lost revenues for one season that was released too soon. So the hackers got a hold of season 6, or it was the season next to last. I think there are 7 seasons of Game of Thrones. Has anyone ever seen Game of Thrones?
Yeah.
Please? Anyone else seen Game of Thrones?
Not me.
Not you? Well, it's a pretty addictive series, and it has a worldwide following, and there are millions and millions of people who want to watch it. But HBO basically had all kinds of other revenue associated with the new release that everybody was waiting for. And because it was released early on the internet, they didn't have to renew their subscription to HBO. They didn't have to load HBO on their devices. So there were all sorts of other revenue that didn't happen. And it was terribly expensive. Okay, so what do you do about the rest of the student learning objectives at the top of this study guide? Well, if you go into the addendum, you'll find that in the addendum, we talk about some specifics in there. And so you want to start here, and then you want to open up the chapter 1 slides and look at it, the chapter 3 slides and look at it, and so on. Okay. I reformatted this so that it was a little easier to see. And we'll take more time to go into identity and account management when we get to our next module. I think we need to stop at this point. Can anyone think of some questions? What would be a question or two that's appropriate given the information we just shared today? Okay. Well,